What? It's a Sharpie. It's not blackface. No, no. Alright, I'm not gonna do it. Fine. Hey everybody, I'm Cortez, and I'm a critic, and we're talking about the Raiders. The Raiders. The the Tom Brady owned Raiders. Yeah. Yeah. For those of you that are like in their 20s, a long time ago, in an NFL season much different from our own, the Raiders were like gangsters. Like they unnecessary roughness was their bread and butter. They literally were just borderline gladiator without weapons, and they were awesome. They won Super Bowls. They have legacy. They are as much the cornerstone of the NFL's legacy as the Packers, Cowboys, and Niners. Like, Raiders have that history. But unlike others, Packers, Cowboys, Niners, some of them have actually gone back to Super Bowls. Some have not won it, but they have gone as far as Super Bowls. The Raiders, led by an old John Gruden, did it at one point, but then he literally jumped ship to Tampa, and the Raiders basically used what's left to try to win a Super Bowl, led by a journeyman quarterback of success in Rich Gannon. Now the Raiders are just the glorified underdog and everything, to the point that when you tell people that at one time the Raiders were considered one of the greater teams in the NFL, they were always competing for championships season in and season out against other teams like the Steelers, people will think you're mentally psychotic. At one point, the Raiders were more than just a fashion statement that NWA would wear. The Raiders were cool. The Raiders were awesome. Silver and black is a great color scheme. It really fits them completely. But lately, the Raiders are nothing more than just... Remember how good they are, the member berries of the NFL. I remember, I remember, I remember. So, when Antonio Pierce, sorry, got the head coaching job, I was very thrilled because I really felt like he was going to bring back the Raiders defense of old. Sad thing to say, that is, you win championships with defense, but if you don't get to the championship game, your defense cannot win the championship. You kind of need an offense. And I will stand by this comment forever. The Atlanta Falcons screwed them over. The Atlanta Falcons got Michael Penix because they're assholes, I guess. Because the Raiders wanted Michael so bad. But they got Brock Bowers, who happened to be a record-setting tight end. And with no quarterback, that says a lot for a tight end to be that formidable. So I gave the Raiders an optimistic 9-8. But if things did not work out, I thought 7-10 would have been enough. Boy, was I drinking the Kool-Aid. They went 4-13. Not even close. Not even close. And I think a lot of it was very apparent that the Raiders' offense, besides Brock Bowers, who was a rookie, and we had no idea how good he was going to be. I felt like, he was my MVP offensive nomination when this preseason started, because I couldn't think of a single Raider that was worthy of an offensive consideration candidate. So, literally, an unproven rookie was the nominee by default. Max Crosby, he's a heart and soul of that defense, but you realize that he can't do it alone. And we start thinking about the Raiders of others on that roster. I literally draw blank. I can't think of another Raider defensive player that has impacted as much as Max Crosby done, or leave as a secondary. Now, there might be some, but right now I'm drawing a blank. So after all this hype and expectation, I was like, yep, some things change, but more they stay the same. And the Raiders are last place. And it's messed up because Denver came in and just was like, I'll be taking that. And the Denver Broncos went to the playoffs. And they had Bo Nix, which I'm sure they're probably thinking, maybe we should have drafted Bo Nix. But you guys didn't have confidence. But like I said, Brock Bowers wasn't a bad pick. It was just like it did not cover up the lack of quarterback play you guys had. Gardner Minshew didn't do it. Aiden O'Connell didn't do it. To the point right now where I think Raider Nation kind of knows, especially with Pete Carroll in the helm. And we all thought Geno was going to be it, and he did. So Geno Smith is now a Raider. Okay, so you got a quarterback who has proven himself worthy. You gave him a $75 million extension. Okay. So this still feels like a temporary fix, right? This still feels like a temporary fix. But anyway, your best game was actually a game that I kind of showed hopeful with promise. Week 17 at New Orleans. It was New Orleans' worst game, but the reason why it's considered the Raiders' best game is, one, you didn't just phone in the season. You went on the road against a hostile team across the country, which always feels that late in the season when people don't want to play. Max Crosby didn't play. He was out for the season after that. And you played your butts off and you showcased that, you know, we're gonna play hard. We're gonna play hard. You guys had almost nearly 400 yards of offense and nearly 40 minutes of time of possession. Brock Bowers had 7 catches for 77 yards. And Aiden O'Connell was your quarterback, who was 242 yards and 2 touchdowns. He played wonderful. Abdullah rushed for 115 yards rushing. This was the Raiders' best game. And before you say, well, against the Saints, I'm like, I'm sorry, when you have 4 wins, what game could you say was the Raiders' best game? Looking at their season, they beat the Ravens week 2. I don't count week 4 game, and the game wasn't so weird enough that I had to put it. Then you beat the Browns in week 4. So 2 of your 4 wins was in the first 4 weeks. You were 2-2. So it was either the Jaguars or the Saints game. And the Saints had a little bit more of an emotional twist because it was the Saints' last home game. So you kind of like took that away from the Saints, which makes you Raiders. So it actually fits your theme of who you are. You went to their home, you took their plunder, and you said, by the way, here's an L. Peace, sucker. And you went out. So this to me was the best game. You didn't quit. You went on the road against a hostile environment in the Superdome, and you embarrassed the Saints. Kudos. Very Raider-like of you. Your worst game took place week 13 at Kansas City, and you all know why it is. Football, like many sports, all comes down to coaching and the players executing. We all know that. We also know that in all sports, a certain terminology comes to mind for everyone. Basketball, hockey, baseball, even badminton. Fundamentals. Basic fundamentals. And sometimes getting a snap and communicating is fundamentals. Did I believe that with Carlson they were going to kick the field goal and beat the Chiefs? More than likely, I kind of felt very confident with that. And the way the Chiefs, let's be real. I have a lot to say about the Chiefs when I talk about the Chiefs. But there's a lot of games the Chiefs were just like, really? Oh, come on. What? Oh, seriously? To the point that you can't just say, it's the... No. What we're dealing with is supernatural phenomenon that not even an exorcist can fix. But of course, the clock struck midnight and they lost in the Super Bowl. So then again, all is safe in the world. But this was a game that I had to put as his worst game because you guys were literally seconds away from getting in position, beating the Chiefs in Arrowhead, and for once again, beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead again. That probably could have saved Pierce's job. I don't know, probably not. But it probably could have been like, at least he beats the Chiefs in Arrowhead. Not many teams can do that, and we did it back to back. So that to me was going to be the thought. But when I saw that happen, oh, I already knew the answer. I already knew, like, yeah, that's a mistake. No, no, there's no penalty. There's no excuse. There's nothing. You messed up and it hurts. Yep. There was nothing you can do. To the point where I was just waiting for them to just confirm it and then just let the Chiefs take a knee and then we'll call it a game. That's how bad it was. It was a game that was like you had a chance to be great, and it came down to a fundamental communication error. Your MVP goes to Brock Bowers. Why? Because I have been praising this guy's name. This guy was the leading receiver for the team. He nearly had 1,200 yards receiving. He broke records. He had 112 receptions and he had 5 touchdowns. But the biggest thing is that he had 153 targets. Myers, who was number 2, who played in 2 less games, had 87 receptions with 129 targets, who also had 1,000 yards receiving. But Bowers, I think being a tight end and a rookie and the quarterback carousel the Raiders went through really cemented the notion of this guy is special. Now imagine how good he can be with someone with more capability like a Geno Smith. I'm not going to say that Brock Bowers is going to break records, but if Brock Bowers gets to, like, you know what, Antonio Gates and Jimmy Graham had in their prime, like, 1,500 yards and double-digit touchdowns, I'll be like, yeah, we kind of saw it during his rookie season with no-name quarterbacks, really. Brock Bowers was my offensive MVP candidate, and he proved it. And Bowser time. The grade for the Raiders, I'm sorry, guys. The season was a failure. 4 wins. Pierce is one and done. Funny enough, another head coach that was a former player becoming a head coach goes one and done and gets replaced by basically other coaches who basically were successful as coaches, but somehow have been on a hiatus for a few years in Vrabel and Pete Carroll. So, yeah, that happened. So, it's a failed season, guys. I really was pushing that Antonio Pierce's defense was going to be top 5 to the point that the offense had to score 14 points and would have won games 14-12 most of the time anyway. That's what I feel like the Raiders' defense was going to be. And with Brock Bowers being a much more surprising success than I gave him credit for, it really made me feel that, man, can you imagine that I actually had a good quarterback? I'm not even talking, I'm talking about like C- level here, guys. B-, like we don't need, honestly, bring back Derek Carr. That's how much better the Raiders would have been if Derek Carr was still a Raider. Seriously, that's how I'm feeling. When it comes to your draft picks, because you got Geno, I would have picked Shador. I would have picked Shador. But you guys, don't need Shador, even though a lot of it was predicating on. So Shador's gonna become a Raider, right? Las Vegas, primetime sun, all that. The narrative speaking would have made sense. But Shador's not there, and since I already made this video, since I already made these predictions, weeks in advance, I don't like second guessing myself. But in that case, I'd be like, then let's get an actual receiver in McMillan, Arizona. I mean, he's right next to Las Vegas anyway, so get him where you can. Or in a power move, get Genty. And the thing that makes me that I made these brackets and predictions weeks before I start recording these videos, and sometimes even longer after I edit them to post them before they come out. And I'm seeing people are saying Gentry becoming a Raider, Gentry becoming a Raider, to the point where it's like, I cannot make the claim that I said it first. And by first, I mean, at least I put it on paper first. You guys publicly said it first. But I think Gentry going to Red makes sense, because if Geno is a placeholder and Bowers is great, I'm thinking give a Gentry, take the pressure off Geno, stretch that out a little bit, work on other players. Who knows what the future holds, but I'm kind of on that fence of get a receiver for Geno for the Raiders or get a running back to help carry the load for the Raiders. So either one you pick, I take it for 6. But that is the Raiders. Another disappointing season for the Silver and Black. Sad thing is, now we're going to talk about a team that actually went to the playoffs and left you at home like the fourth sibling that no one cares about. So we're going to go to Colorado and talk about the Denver Broncos and how Bo Nix showed that he was the fix in the nick of time to give the Broncos a chance, and basically proven that maybe playing college football for more than a year should cement yourself as a better quarterback than those that go one and done, one good year, and then jump into the mat. Mitch Trubisky. So until next time we talk about the Broncos, I'm Cortez, and I'm a critic. Thank you so very much for watching.